Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about a design and validation of a discrete transducer model for simulating bowl-shaped focused ultrasound transducers on regular grids. First of all, a brief introduction on HIFU is for non-invasive cancer treatment, and these transducers can be of a single element or of multiple elements. When we send a cone of beam inside the body, there is a distortion of waves due to different tissue properties. So therefore, HIFU treatment is usually accompanied by either ultrasound imaging or MRI for both the beam guidance and also for monitoring. Here are some common HIFU transducers. They are all bowl-shaped. Those on the right-hand side, they are all single-element transducers. Those on the left-hand side, they are all multi-element arrays with circular elements. And those in the middle, they are multi-element arrays with irregular elements. So modeling the fields of these transducers is critical for treatment planning. And there are three things we need for treatment for the model. The first one is a wave propagation model, which is quite well defined. And usually for a full wave model, they are all based on regular Cartesian grid. The second thing is the properties of the medium, which we can obtain from CT scans. And the third thing would be the input or source model. So currently, transducers are characterized by measuring an input plane. The first case we have here is a single element transducer. The measurement plane would be right in front of it. And this is a very simple setup, very easy to do. The second case we have is multi-element transducers. And this is still the same setup with the first case, but if we have a little change in the signal input in either the phase or amplitude sent to each of those elements, we have to remeasure the plane. This is quite troublesome because each scan would take up several hours. In the third case here, we have a transcranial ultrasound transducer. And in this case, it is not possible to measure any input plane for the model. So the research question is, instead of measuring an input plane, can we model the transducer directly? This is our project outline. We created a discrete transducer model, and we validated the model against numerical testing and experimental testing. For the discrete transducer model, all the simulations in this project were carried out with MATLAB toolbox K-Wave. It is a widely used open source software for acoustic. And the challenge for creating a discrete transducer model is that we have to represent a curved surface on a regular Cartesian mesh. That leads to the staircasing error. Staircasing is a problem because for a lower resolution of grid, the model we have for each point on the model, it will be further away from the real curve of the transducer. And here are some requirements for the model. For the shape, we are focusing on bowl-shaped transducer here. So it's a sector of a sphere or it's a disk. For the specification of the model, it should be a single layered bowl shape because we don't want any magnification of the signal due to overlapping of source points. And it should be continuous because this continuity leads to a reduction in signal, and it should also be symmetric. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to create a discrete transducer model in 2D. There are 5 input parameters. The first one is a grid size, which is defining the size of the space. And the second one is the position of the transducer, the center of the transducer. The third one is the radius of curvature. The fourth one is the diameter of the transducer. And the last one is the focus of the transducer, which tells the orientation of the transducer. If we put in some numbers, the first step would be to calculate the geometric focus of the transducer. And then distance matrix is calculated for each point inside the grid from the geometric focus. After that, for each row and each column in this matrix, we carry out a bidirectional scan. So we pick up the points which are with a distance less than 0.5 grid points from the required radius. The next step would be to calculate two angles. First of all, theta p P is each point on the circle, and for each point, we calculate its angle from the axis of the transducer. This is based on the definition of dot product. The second angle is theta A. It is the half of the arc angle. It's just simple geometry. So for each angle P, with theta P less than theta A, we keep the points. And if theta P is larger than theta A, then we just remove them from the matrix, leaving this arc over here. And if we put the radius of curvature to infinite, it means that the transducer is flat, so we get a line instead. Applying the same steps to a 3D space, we can get a bowl model. And if we repeat this in the transducer model in 3D, we can get a multiple element transducer model. So now we have the model and we want to validate it. First of all, I'm going to talk about numerical testing. We took the geometries of H101 transducer from Sonic Concepts and we put it into our model for a number of resolutions from 2.2 points per wavelength to 10.8 points per wavelength. And we run the simulation and we compare the results of the resultant pressure field to the Rayleigh model, which is an analytical model. So this is the result for the numerical testing. We have two axial profiles here. The top one is 2.2 points per wavelength. The bottom one is the one with 8.6 points per wavelength. Red line is simulation results and black line is analytical results. For both plots, the pressure at the focus and in the far field, they are having a good match with their analytical solution. But in the near field, only the simulation with a higher resolution gets a good match with the analytical solution. So we have an error plot against the points per wavelength. For points per wavelength larger than 5 points, the error is already less than 10%. So the error in the near field pressure is due to the cross-section, the low resolution, which is causing the staircasing error. And to further validate our model, we did some experiments, and this is the diagram of the block diagram for the setup. We have a transducer and the hydrophone in the water tank, and on one side we have signal generators driving the transducer, and on the other side we have oscilloscope picking up the signal from hydrophone and then sending it to the computer. The computer is also controlling a tank scanner, which scans the tank automatically. This was in the lab, the setup, and this is the transducer with the hydrophone. So we did the experiment with two transducers, H101 and H151, both from Sonic Concepts, and they have the same diameter with different focal length. We used two signals. One is a burst, and one is a continuous wave. And for each of these sets, we did one planar scan and two line scans. And for the planar scan, we used the data to project to the whole field to obtain the 3D pressure field. For simulations, we used the same transducers and signals, and we did it with 3 resolutions. So as the 4 sets of data are quite similar, we are only presenting one set here, This is the H101 with continuous wave signal. And these are the lateral planes and axial planes at the focus for the experiment on the right-hand side and for the simulations. So you can see a very good agreement for all of them. And this is the validation, this is the actual profiles on the top left-hand side. And you see a good agreement at the focus and in the far field, but not quite some errors in the near field. For all the lateral profiles, there is a very good agreement. So a summary for the validation part. For both comparison with analytical model and experiment, there is a low resolution is enough for the far field and near the focus. A higher resolution is needed to model the near field accurately. And some possible future work would be to introduce correction for staircasing, and therefore we can reduce the resolution needed for modeling the near field accurately. And here is our conclusion. We have developed a discrete transducer model in 2D and in 3D. We have validated the model with analytical model and experiment. And this model will be released in K-Wave, and these models will allow simulation of multi-element arrays. So that's all of my presentation. Thank you.